Hello everyone, welcome. Thank you so much for joining me here. My name's Eva. Today we're going to focus on things in a couple different layers. I had an intention for this when I woke up this morning that I wrote down, and then my friend just sent me a meme, which actually feels very related, although it might not seem that way. So the meme was, maybe I can take a screenshot and put it here. It was an image of sort of the world burning, and then a Barbie who was like me telling everyone that cognitive electromagnetic warfare is in the defense budget for 2026. And I was like, this is a really powerful moment for us to do a couple different things. Within the context of the dream, right? What we believe to be real because we've made it and we continue to participate in the samsara, right? The world of the dream, what we experience as physical reality, which we are projecting from mind. We can't lose sight of that or else we won't really be able to heal. So we always need to start there to bring ourselves into the empowerment where we can really allow healing to take place. But while we are within the dream, obviously we see all of these things happening, and I think electromagnetic warfare has been happening for a very long time. It's just coming out into the open, right? So if you have eyes to see and you are, these things are being broadcast now, that's good. It's good that it's out in the open more, because that actually really empowers people to take authority and sovereignty over their own field. The whole of this hologram is electromagnetism. So we are, in our localized field, an electromagnetic field. We know this. So because you have consciousness, because you have perception from your own individualized self, and because of what you are as a being of God, of source, of creation, you can absolutely take the authority and the sovereignty over what you will choose to see. And so it's not ignoring that these things are taking place within the dream. It's saying these things are taking place. I choose to see this differently. I choose to see myself as not a being that is susceptible to this kind of attack, to this kind of damage, to this kind of warfare. And so in a sense, you could say it is protection, but it is more a claiming of the reality that you don't need protection because of what you are. So it's what you emit. It's not the shield that you put up against it. It's what you emit from within your heart, from within your mind, from within your field that neutralizes that disruption, that interference. So this is really about an almost kind of tantric, visceral physicality of taking this authority and sovereignty in the field. And the things that were coming up, which feel very related to this because it feels like what is being projected. A lot of people associate this also with 5G. I've heard insane things about 6G, in the subliminal we learned about subliminal messaging in Catholic high school. What is on the code of the streams of the currents of all of this electromagnetic information that's just constantly running through the field. If you think about Wi-Fi, that's not something we can see. Wi-Fi is not running in the electric wires. It's running through the field. It runs through your body. All of that information is all running through the field. And so when we take sovereignty, it's not putting ourselves in a bubble of a shielding against anything, because that's choosing to participate in their narrative that you would need to fight against it or defend against it. And that's part of what we're trying to release and loosen up and see, that there's a way to see beyond that duality, so we're not inadvertently or unintentionally continuing to participate in those narratives and to perpetuate those narratives for everyone else. But what I'm really feeling very strongly, and these currents carry information of all kinds of death, all kinds of pain. But what I'm feeling very relevant to be, if you're finding this video and in this time, is a lot of self-doubt, defeatism, giving up, the wanting to give up, of feeling like a disconnect from spirit. Now, that is a vibration that many people are running around with. So many people on earth don't even think about spirit. But if you have had a strong connection, or you feel like you've received very clear guidance and now you kind of don't feel like you're feeling it, I've heard other people say this too, that there's a strong current of this sort of amplifying in the collective fear matrix, which feels like it's making it harder to connect by the way of paying attention to these outside things. So we really want to hold these illusions in mind long enough to see that they are unreal, and we can only do that by accessing our higher mind. So harsh judgment of self, understanding that whenever we are entertaining these as the primary vibration, we really can't let spirit in, because spirit is of love and we are defending ourselves against love. We are entertaining ourselves, proclaiming ourselves to be anti-love while we identify with these attributes of fear. So this is also including rage, deep sacral rage, feminine rage, vengeance, and wrath. And so I'm feeling very strongly to work with Ma Kali, but if you have other guides that you like to work with, that you want to work with, all emanations of the Divine Mother coming through, the Blessed Mother, Mary, Durga coming through. Kali is an emanation of Durga, but the all-encompassing divine feminine energy really, really coming through, bringing in that enlightened mother aspect. I just had a really beautiful conversation with my mother today, bringing this Empress card is here on the top of my deck. So really, really bring in the High Priestess and the Six of Wands. Gorgeous. See, there is always, while hope is needed, while we believe we live within the dream, there is always hope. Lord of the Rings. Lord of the Rings always reminds me of this. It's in theaters now. All the extendeds are in theaters. If you have never seen Lord of the Rings, this would be an incredible opportunity to see Lord of the Rings. I went last weekend while my sister was in town, and she hasn't seen those movies in a long time. And when we got back, we saw Fellowship, and then we got back and she was like, I need to know what happens. And then we watched all of the Lord of the Rings. And I'm also going this Sunday to see The Return of the King. So it's a very powerful narrative of love and hope. I have a trance meditation, a trance healing on restoring hope. That's very beautiful, very powerful. So if you feel, it's a light language tape, works very deeply in the unconscious and the subconscious to clear everything we're talking about out of that held genetic record. I was talking to my mom about this morning also, which is because she is also a mystic, and we've talked about these things for my whole life. But we were talking about when things feel really hard, and we want so much to snap our fingers and say, oh, things can be different right now, which they always can. We always have the choose to see in peace, but understanding that while we're walking around in bodies, that we carry in our bodies the genetic history since the beginning of time, and so of all on earth, because we are sharing this genetic code with all. So give yourself a little grace when things come up and you feel overwhelmed, or you feel like you can't see as clearly as you could. I'll be really honest with you, in these past couple weeks, my physical life is in what feels to be kind of a void space. I have been feeling less clarity than I used to, in a way that has troubled me. But my mom really helped me remember that these things sort of ebb and flow, and sometimes we're brought into these sort of liminal spaces of feeling like the guidance is less clear, it's more quiet, it's harder to access, for you to really bring into stark illumination those deeper unconscious beliefs, those unconscious limitations, those perceptions of what you believe you are. To choose again, to say, will I choose to believe this is who I am in fear, or will I choose again? I'm not abandoned. I'm not alone. Spirit is always with me. I am of Spirit. I am of God. you know, we say this often, you can't bring truth to illusions, you have to bring illusions up. And if you're asking for that, if you're asking to be cleared, and my mom was saying this too, because she just started a Reiki training. She was saying, you know, when you ask to be healed, and we say this all the time when we guide or sort of suggest that we give ourselves grace in doing this work, because it will bring up, you know, when you ask to be healed, what you currently believe will be brought up to the surface. And then sometimes we get really discouraged by that because we think that it's something we've done wrong, that we've incurred this new to us. But it's really just the past coming up to be reckoned with for us to dismiss its reality. And so holding all of this in our intention, holding all of this in our mind, it is to be cleared of it, but we understand that the mechanism of clearing is our decision to see it not, is our decision to see through it into the light that is. We always have this power. So taking nice deep breaths. Mianaimi, miayaimi, miayanayonotot. Yisna tra konna tra tumna tra nain. Kimayana oruhin sayas nos nondroatainit. And we understand in sound. Sound always reconfigures the structure, the vibratory structure of this reality. And so as we bring in our sound, and so a lot of people ask like why some people can speak light language, which you know how if you've seen me before, you know how I feel about that term and really even calling it a language. But it doesn't matter. Whatever way, whatever tone, if you feel like toning, if you feel like just like hitting certain notes, if you want to sing, if you just want to vocalize, like that sound that's emitting from you. This is so much of the sort of linguistic wave genetics, this sound power, but it coming from you and from your DNA, from within yourself. You know, it could be powerful if you're interested in light language to allow yourself to speak along with me and just trust that it, like, just let your ego go in it and just pretend like you know what's, and then it just comes. Like that's sort of where you just open your mouth and you let it come, like align yourself with the transmission that is coming through, and then your own unique transmission comes through you by virtue of you aligning with the transmission that comes through us together. It might not sound exactly like what's coming out of my mouth, but it will come uniquely coded for you to assist in your reorganization of physical reality. In your body and without. In your mind, in the mind spaces that we have intended to fractalize in separation. We reunify that through this sound. And so, as we are bringing correction to this electromagnetic interference, it's just a bit of an explainer of how we're doing this. We bring the intention to be healed, and so we, in a sense, don't counteract or defend against, we simply neutralize that interference in our localized field, and as we offer it to all living beings, it is then shared out. We are not enforcing it upon other people. That's negation of mind. We are offering it. And we choose to see others in that light of the truth by our offering. A lot coming through in the throat, but it is coming through as like self-talk. The thoughts, remember, all of the dimensionalities have like a mind field. So thoughts don't just live in your brain, and it's much more than what we would consider. So when we think about communication as thoughts with ourself, this is really coming through as in the physical, as clearing out in this throat area. Trayatos, rukinanishni, rukunum norukuin sato, shitrikianayon yorukuruhumitianayon, rukutoyotoruhitis, satarak dati rutoyono arat, hoshipitianayin sikki, hiorukuyipitaya soyanakonoyon, ritastarato sosoin shin, hamaorotoyo sunso ishaya kiraya toruitisi. Nandra tosum saishitri koruku timain, hindara to korukut, ritik, rigorukuta, iyayata yatakoruipaya shutro. You can also think of it like this. If they're sending electromagnetic interference into our atmosphere or our hologram, whatever, into the grids at their various dimensional levels, you can think about your genetics as having like a code match. And if you're holding on to, if you're entertaining, if you're identifying with these negative beliefs, these fearful beliefs, these warring kind of beliefs, these violent beliefs against self, against other people, which is the same, you're lighting up at that level and it matches. And so you pick up that frequency because it's matching in something that you're entertaining in your localized field. So if we neutralize our own localized field, we are no longer a match for that interference. And it's important to say that we are grateful, this might seem counterintuitive, but that we are grateful for the interference, for the opportunity for it to show us. This is, whatever word you want to use, the ego, the darkness, the enemy, whatever, lots of people call this, I think it's most beneficial to call it the ego because that sort of takes out any kind of blame or sense of like the devil or something having like this power that you don't have. Like it makes it easier to say that I made this up if we take a lot of that fraught historical or religious narration out of it, because that's all layers of the dream. That's all things that we also made up. So if that comes up, we also need to forgive that. But to really rest in the gratitude for for having the opportunity to say, oh, maybe without this interference, I would not have had the opportunity to see that these negative beliefs still live in me. And so I am grateful for the opportunity, and I'm grateful that I know that I can choose again, that I no longer have to choose for this to be my identity, and I do have the choice. And so much of this work is just merely remembering, uncovering all of this shit that lays on top to remember that we have the choice to see again. Not that we have to continue to participate in certain narratives, but that we can choose to see ourselves above them even as our bodies move through them. That we can resolve those stories for good. That's possible. It doesn't have to be an infinite wheel. That there are endless lifetimes, it doesn't have to be that way. Kiraya torukuin sokunoamaya torukuisi. Shindritis, remember you are the dreamer. We move to awakening, but before we fully awaken, now remember awakening would be formless beingness, because that's the reality. So before we fully awaken into, while we are here embodied, while we are evolving the form, that we dream a better dream, that we dream an enlightened dream, that we dream inspired by spirit instead of by our ego, which we made. Sia takoruku yosotsotoai, kimiana orumnitri, kisiti shingaya tokorukuna. Sansatru rukuipi, korukuiti kinandrato sotsoa, shinsikiri koruti kinimayansa karato sokoya, shitra toruti kin sitri, hidoruto yotokorukuina, yetaya tokorukuta, shamnandrato, ruku tokorukunindriti si sianjakaratus otruat, kandriti sinsikiri teyatiana yonorukumasun sotoashi, sinsi tria tokoruku iti kaya tumahuncha karato so Sinsi hanaini tiara rurukuita ruturruhurutaiti tikiditiatiataisi. Sit hitritisna tranayo nohoropotokotaini tanananishini. Himna tra torruhuti titihumotosumsaishnadra. Sinkaya sundo korruhup torukuin, him norutum natratasatraisi soto, hau rurukum nititeatakinin diorukutis, sito rukuti payo to shipi. Hiniana raya to korruhuiti, sinsi kinindikaya takarkiria tisio torukum jiritisaya. Hini son sondroishi. You know what? Lately, I have been accessing and working with and learning from these sort of archetypal narrative myth stories of Greece and Rome and the Etruscans. And there are aspects of like Morpheus and the, I'm going to say this wrong, Oineros, Oinerai? These like dream spirits and like the shaper of form and Vertunum kitiata korukuiti sikiai shinti konayon sotoipik. Vertumnus kitayata korutus, which has one story in Ovid's Metamorphosis, but is an Etruscan, like a prehistory, very, very ancient. And that is like form and divine timing moving through like time or physical reality. The cycles of things, the seasons of things change. And so as we extend our awareness of our genetics, it's not in like a worshipful subjugation relationship, but we can absolutely use these representations that our ancestors have used since prehistory to understand these larger forces, which I would say are these more expanded dimensional forces that they have personified, but with Vertumnus not personified. There's one story in which this essence is personified that they could find. It's not. It's living at this aspect which is, you know, not a personality, not a human, you know, extending into these forces, because we live there also. They are one with us. We are one with this field. And so I have, I'm writing about it, and that's gonna be my first like sort of longer form essay on Substack. But it's coming through and it makes sense as we are understanding we're not at the mercy of darkness. We're not at the mercy of negation. We have our own power within us. And because we have individuated consciousness here, we should use it. We should use it to reunify. It's not just that we understand we are reunified with all of the other human beings, but we are in union with all of the forces, all of these archetypal narratives, all of it. And we really want to get in there. This is going a little longer than I thought, but there is interference that we would clear. We would not be subject to this interference. And now if that brings up anger, we are working with Kali, right? So it is this like empowered destruction of negative form. I am not at the mercy of those who would believe themselves to be in a position to subjugate me. I am not open for mind control. I am not open for emotional control. I am not open to forgetting who I am in truth. I do not consent Kia takarihiti sinsikinindio torukuitia porunchi tritis natri. Kina insandratus osotoro horukui shipayas nanda. Kamaraya toruhitit. Kia isinsi trayon trais darutushi parundo korukuiti ki. Now it's a fine line, you guys. It's not to perpetuate these narratives. It is only enough for us to remember the power, the authority, and the sovereignty within us. It's not to continue to see these forces as evil or having power over us. It's not to continue these traumatic narratives that are held in our genetics by proclaiming the power of darkness. It is to see it as it sees itself and how that structure has emanated throughout in the genetic record and the emotional experience and the mental experience of all beings on Earth and in this solar system. But it is to hold that long enough to forgive it. We have to forgive it, and to forgive it is to see the light of the truth that is behind it. It is God that is the creator. That is in all things. That is where all things are. That is where all things come from. And to bring back the Lord of the Rings, there are many, many really cool videos, even if you just put it on in the background, of how Tolkien described, he had like the Aenor, these angelic beings which came from the One, and then there was one that had Morgoth, that had an idea. His creation was song, and had the idea to sing a different song, and then that introduced discord, and that introduced separation. And so that's his take on the narrative. But the reason why Morgoth was so rageful was because Elendil, who was the One, said, or the creator, said, it doesn't really matter. Your discord now becomes part of my plan. Your discord has no power over what my plan will be. It has no power over the One. And that just he became more and more rageful. And so that's a good kind of narrative story to understand that the light, the light of the truth, the creator is, and you are still of the creator. So use that in the same way to say, this doesn't disrupt God's plan for unity. I can use this for God's plan for unity in the way I remember myself and the way I choose to remember Source Creator in all things. That's real empowerment. That's real authority. That's real sovereignty, and that's real healing. And I am in so much gratitude to be offering this, to be here remembering with everyone, and I'm so grateful that you've all chosen to join me here. So thank you very much. Remember your power. Remember who you are at this time, because there is interference coming from what we would perceive as without, that is really trying to hide the light of the truth of what we are, but it will not work. Amen. We're going to end it here. Thank you all so much for joining me. Remember, we just launched the Spiritual Alchemy community on School. Lots of exciting things happening there. I'm really excited for that. And lots of ways we can work together. Lots of themed trance meditations, which are light language tapes and sound healing that you can listen to while you sleep. You can use as an experience into the field. You can use to sort of expand your awareness, to clear yourself. You can use that in any intention to know yourself healed and to expand in your awareness and to offer that awareness to all others and to unravel the illusion that we have tied ourselves and bound ourselves with. Very powerful work. One-on-ones are open, personal trance, written guidance, lots of stuff going on. Always linked below. Thank you guys so much for joining me. God bless you, and I will see you next time.